Okay, if you girls would introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about what you do here.
Sure. My name is Anna Vornholt. I'm a park guide here at Capitol Reef National Park. So I work in interpretation at the Visitor Center and also doing educational programs here.
My name's Sophie Westacott, and I'm the GeoCorps America intern here. That's a program run by the Geological Society of America to bring geoscientists and people who are training to be geoscientists into great places like this. That's awesome.
Okay. Would you talk to us a little bit about the geology here?
Sure. So in the park we have 17 rock formations on the surface. You can actually see 200 million years of geologic history, which is one of the things that makes this place so unique. Over here we're looking at the bottom. We have the red Moenkopi Formation, which is formed in sort of a tidal flat environment. Above that we have the Chinle Formation, which is formed in a more swampy, tropical, river flooding environment. And then above that we get into the Wingate Sandstone, which is formed in a more arid environment.
Okay.
So those are just 3 of the formations that we have in the park, but we have 17. And the reason we have so many formations exposed at the surface is because we're one of the largest monoclines in the world. And what that means is that we had a oceanic plate sliding under the North American plate probably about 70 million years ago. And when that happened, it caused a lot of crumpling in the Earth's surface, and it reactivated this fault below these sedimentary layers that we see today. So these sedimentary layers up here were all lying nice and flat on the surface above this igneous bedrock. And the igneous bedrock had a big fault in it, sort of sleeping dragon. And when that was reawakened, the western block was lifted up more than a mile. And because these were still fairly plastic and ductile, they had a lot of other rock on top of them, and they didn't have the fault running through them, rather than breaking where that fault line was, they just sort of folded, draped themselves over that fault. And then of course, as soon as you throw rock up in the air and expose it to wind and rain and ice and snow, you start getting erosion. And so if you imagine, if you're walking along here, you're only walking along one formation of rock, one type of rock. But if you start eroding it down, if we were to cut across here, we would suddenly be walking across all these different types of rocks. And that's actually what we're seeing today. You can walk across 200 million years of geologic history because of that process of deposition of these sediments, then uplift and then into a monocline, and then subsequent erosion.
We were at Arches yesterday, and so I wanted to see how this fits in with the Entrada and Navajo sandstone that we see there. Can you see any of that here?
Yeah, well actually from right here where we are, you can see the Navajo sandstone. It's kind of the white dome-shaped rock all the way up at the top. The only place you can really see Entrada here is in the northern part of Capitol Reef in Cathedral Valley.
Okay, great. Did you want to show us the rock samples that you've got?
Sure. Let's see, here do you want to... The first one I have here, it's the Moenkopi, so that's this level that's even with the ground right here, the kind of soft reddish brown one. We call that ripple rock because it was formed here kind of during a lazy tidal flat where the water is kind of flowing across the sediment. We can actually see ripples in the rocks.
Wow.
And then above that, the gray rock, we have the Chinle Formation. And that often, a lot of parts of that had a reducing environment as opposed to an oxidizing environment. Mm-hmm. So we've got some nice like red, rusty, iron-rich stuff here, but in the Chinle you see a lot of green and gray rock, and typically that's from a reducing environment. And we had a lot of organic material, which contributes to a reducing environment. Mm-hmm. So you'll see a lot of petrified wood in parts of the Chinle.
Oh wow.
Particularly on the Chimney Rock Trail, you can see a lot around the trail as you're walking through the Chinle.
Great. Okay. So as we were driving through, we noticed a lot of black rocks that were sort of up high and looked like they had fallen down.
Sure.
Is that volcanic?
That is volcanic, and I've got a little one right here. So about 20 million years ago, there were some lava vents to the west of us, so Boulder Mountain and Thousand Lakes Mountain. Okay. So the lava kind of came up there and cooled. And then all these boulders have been transported down here. So most geologists believe there were glaciers up there, and when those glaciers melted, they saturated the ground and caused slurries or kind of landslides that transported all these boulders down here. So they tend to be kind of rounded from that motion as they were coming down.
Right, right.
Seem very out of place with all of our nice red sedimentary rocks.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. I think really the neatest thing for us, or for me at least, is that you really can drive this Highway 24 going through the park and see all those different layers. So, you know, in the 20 minutes it takes you to drive across the park, you're seeing that 200 million year geologic story, which is a neat experience to have.
And so, can we get the sponge out again?
Yeah.
Sure.
So when you're looking at like this,
Yeah, our monocline.
does the road run in here, or?
It's kind of running across. So an easy way to
Okay.
think about it is if you have your little stratigraphic chart.
Yeah.
So normally we've got, you know, our oldest rock layers on the bottom right and our youngest ones on top.
Right.
But because of the shift, because of this monocline, this uplift, everything's kind of tilted. So if you were to put the road in just like this, right around where we are here at the visitor center, you can see the Moenkopi Formation, which is one of our older rocks. As you're heading east, you're just going through younger and younger rock
Okay.
until you get out to like Maine Coast Shale.
Okay.
Yep, so kind of just cutting right through all of them. And you can actually see places where the rock layers are at angles and kind
Yeah.
of peter out into the ground.
Yeah. We noticed that yesterday
Yeah.
driving in. That was awesome. Can you tell us about the wildlife here? We noticed the trash cans look like they're bear-proof. Are there bears around here, or are they just
Not really
in general
any bears.
always animal-proof? Okay.
Always animal proof. We're more concerned about the rodents and things
Okay,
around here
I
getting
see.
into the food. We have a large number of rare and endangered plants here, and really that's because we have this very specific geologic environment that these plants have adapted to live here and nowhere else. So we have, you know, pincushion cacti and other types of rare flowers. We also have a number of animal species as well. Some of our bigger ones are going to be, you know, the mule deer that live kind of here in this river gorge. Mountain lions, we have some mountain lions, desert bighorn sheep, and then of course tons of lizards and birds and all sorts of things. And we also have yellow-bellied marmots here,
Oh, wow.
which is rare to have them at this low of elevation.
They usually live higher.
They live a little bit higher, yeah.
Find very many fossil deposits, dinosaur bones, or marine invertebrates, or anything around here?
There are, we do have fossils in here. We do see, we have some, these are Chiritherium tracks. We have swim smears, which are reptiles, large reptiles. You can imagine it's when you're in shallow water and you're kind of swimming, kind of crawling. You leave
Right.
those. Yeah, so we have those sorts of tracks. We also, you can see oyster, we have large oyster reefs, I believe, in the north. Is that right?
Yeah, you can see them along the Nona Bullfrog Road in the south,
South, yeah.
in the Dakota sandstone.
Yeah, and then if you're heading south, you can also get into the Morrison Formation, and nearby here, I don't know about in the park, but outside the park, they found Sauropod bones and other large dinosaur bones in that formation.
Right.
So-
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And this Chiritherium track is from the Moenkopi Formation,
Yeah.
so this
Okay.
one right here.
Yeah.
Shallow, muddy
Yeah.
kind of situation. Yeah.
Yeah, you can imagine something's kind of buoyed up a little bit by the water, creating those depressions with its feet.
Right.
Walking
Right.
through.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, what do you feel like when visitors come here? What do they miss? Are there things that you've seen here in the park that you think visitors really don't get a feel for?
I think if you've seen a map of Capitol Reef, we're this very long and skinny park. And I think most people, when they come through, they kind of focus on Highway 24 and the scenic drive, which is great. But if you actually drive to the southern part of the park, to the Water Pocket District, that's where you can see the monocline at its most pronounced curve and really actually see these different layers and how they've eroded. So I think that's something that a lot of people miss.
Okay.
I think anyone, if they're driving through and aren't getting out of their car, they're missing
Yeah.
the best way to see the park is probably through hikes and walking and getting up close to the rocks.
What trail do you think is the best? If you had to pick one hike, what do you think it would be the best?
It kind of changes. Whatever hike is the last one I did is usually my
Right.
favorite.
Yeah.
But one of my favorites is Cohab Canyon. It's one where you kind of hike up, get a beautiful view of the historic district, and then you're in this narrow canyon. It's got little slot sections off the side of it. I think it's a really neat one.
Sounds awesome. My last question then. So, how did Capitol Reef get its name?
Okay, from two separate things. So the capital comes from that white Navajo sandstone, the kind of domes up there. We have one particular Navajo sandstone dome that looks like the original dome of the U.S. Capitol building. So that's why it's Capitol with an O instead of with an A.
Right.
And then the reef is the monocline that stretches about 100 miles early people coming into this area saw this as a huge barrier to travel, so they called any barrier like that a reef.
Okay.
Capital reef.
So I wondered if there were a lot of coral deposits or something in
Not
that
so much,
side.
but we get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Right, right.